My dear brothers and sisters, today I invite you to look around the world, not only with your eyes, but with your heart. What do we see? What do we feel? Across continents, across cities and villages, there is a cry, sometimes loud, often silent, a cry that comes from the wounded, the forgotten, the broken, the angry. It is the cry of a world increasingly divided, fractured by selfishness, pride, fear, and indifference. Yet in the midst of this division, God places in our hearts a calling, a purpose, a quiet but insistent voice that says, "Serve one another in love," not in grand speeches or distant philosophies, but in the simple gesture of a hand extended, a wound tended, a stranger welcomed. This is our mission, not only as believers, but as human beings. Service and compassion are not luxury values. They are not reserved for the saints or the heroes. They are the path of every man and woman who wishes to live fully, truthfully, and meaningfully. When we serve, we do not lose ourselves. We find ourselves, for it is only by pouring ourselves out in love that we are filled. Think of the Good Samaritan, a man left on the side of the road, beaten, ignored, despised. And who helps him? Not the powerful, not the respected, not the religious elite, but a Samaritan, someone considered unworthy by the standards of the time. He kneels, he touches the wounds, he gives his oil, his coin, his time, his heart. And in doing so, he becomes a neighbor. He becomes fully human. That is the power of compassion. It transforms strangers into brothers. It makes enemies into companions. It lifts the veil of indifference and reveals the face of Christ in every person. For when we gaze into the eyes of the poor, the sick, the prisoner, the refugee, the forgotten, we do not simply see a problem to be solved. We see the suffering Christ who says, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me." We must ask ourselves, are we living as people of service? Or have we grown comfortable with walls of ideology, of nationality, of religion, of race, of wealth, that protect our security but suffocate our souls? Service breaks down these walls. Compassion walks through them. Love does not ask, "Who is my neighbor?" Love says, "I am a neighbor to all." Too often we hear voices of division, voices that feed on fear, that paint the world in black and white, that tell us to protect ourselves rather than to give of ourselves. These voices are loud, but they are not wise. For history teaches us that societies fall not because they are too generous, but because they forget how to love. And love, true love, is never abstract. It is not a feeling, a theory, or a slogan. Love is a meal shared with the hungry. Love is a hand wiped across the brow of the sick. Love is listening to the tears of someone in pain without trying to fix them, just to be with them. Love is the courage to forgive, to ask forgiveness, and to begin again. I tell you, there is no greater revolution than the revolution of tenderness. We may build empires, we may reach the stars, but if we lose the ability to weep with those who weep, to rejoice with those who rejoice, then we are lost. Our humanity is not measured by how high we rise, but by how low we bend to lift another. In this moment of history, we are being tested. The world has more technology, more wealth, more connection than ever before. Yet loneliness grows, suspicion grows, violence grows. Why? Because we have forgotten the center. We have forgotten that the heart is made not for conquest, but for communion. The true power of service is that it decentralizes the self. It makes room for the other. It opens the door to the sacred mystery that we are not alone, that we are bound together, and that my destiny is tied to yours. This is not weakness. This is strength, the kind of strength that builds families, heals nations, and brings peace. Do not think that compassion is passive or weak. It is the greatest force on earth. Compassion is what led mothers and fathers to march for justice. Compassion is what made ordinary men and women shelter Jews in basements, blacks at lunch counters, and lepers on the streets. Compassion is what drives people today to rescue migrants at sea, to sit with the dying, to fight for the dignity of the unborn, the elderly, the disabled, and the abused. If we want to change the world, we do not need more noise. We need more mercy. If we want to build bridges where there are walls, we do not begin with anger. We begin with listening. We begin with stories. We begin with faces. Let us not forget. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you cannot see. Behind every angry word, there may be a broken heart. Behind every act of hatred, there may be a wound not yet healed. Only compassion can pierce through the darkness to reach the soul. Do not be afraid to serve. Do not be ashamed to be kind. The world may mock gentleness, but God honors it. The world may praise pride, but the heavens rejoice in humility. There is no act of love too small. Even a cup of water given with a pure heart echoes in eternity. Our future depends not on the brilliance of our ideas, but on the depth of our love. In schools, in homes, in parliaments, in churches, on the streets, we must sow seeds of tenderness. We must teach our children not just to compete, but to care. Not just to consume, but to give. Not just to win, but to forgive. And to those who feel weak, who feel unseen, who feel unworthy, I say this to you: you are needed, you are loved. Your service, your compassion, your prayers in secret, your quiet acts of kindness, they hold the world together more than you know. Do not wait for the world to change before you begin. Begin now. Begin with the person next to you. Begin in the silence of your heart. The river of compassion starts with a single drop. And remember this: the cross was not a symbol of power, but of sacrifice. And from that sacrifice came resurrection. So too, from our service, new life will arise. From our compassion, hope will be born. And from our love, a divided world will become a united family. Let this be our prayer, not just with words, but with lives poured out in mercy. Let us be the hands of healing in a world of wounds. Let us be the voices of peace in a time of conflict. Let us be the face of Christ to every soul we meet. Let us not forget the power of presence. Not the presence that demands attention, but the presence that offers attention. The kind that listens without interrupting, that stands beside the suffering without needing to fix them. Too many today are surrounded by noise but suffer in silence. They are waiting not for advice, but for someone to notice that they are there, that they matter. Compassion is not always spoken. Often it is simply staying, sitting in the shadow with another until the morning comes. And still, we are tempted by the idea that we must first be perfect before we serve, that unless we are strong, holy, or wise, our service is useless. But that is not how God works. He does not call the equipped, He equips the called. He takes our brokenness and makes it a blessing. He takes our weakness and reveals His strength through it. What He asks is not perfection, but willingness. When we give ourselves in service, we are not solving all the problems of the world. We are planting seeds, seeds that may not bear fruit in our lifetime, but seeds that matter to God. And every act of mercy waters a dry land. Every tear shed for another softens the soil. Every embrace, every prayer, every gesture of peace is a crack in the wall of division. through which light can pour. I think of the elderly woman who visits the sick every day, even when her own knees ache. I think of the teacher who sees potential in the child others overlook. I think of the prisoner who prays for his victims every night in a cell, asking for forgiveness he may never receive. These are the heroes who carry the world forward, not by force, but by love. And love must be active. Love that only stays in the heart is like a lamp hidden under a basket. It was made to shine. Love must move the feet, open the hands, speak words of comfort, build structures of justice. It must go into the streets, the homes, the margins. We must seek not only to feel compassion, but to build communities of compassion, families, neighborhoods, cities where no one is cast aside. This is the work of service, not simply to alleviate suffering, but to restore dignity. To make each person feel that they are not forgotten, that they are not disposable, that their life has worth, not because of what they produce or how they perform, but simply because they are, and in this we become more human. Service is not charity from above. It is solidarity beside. It is looking one another in the eye and saying, "Your pain is my pain. Your joy is my joy. Your struggle is mine." The hand that serves must be the hand that learns. The heart that gives must be the heart that listens. How many suffer today not from lack of food, but from lack of love? How many are rich in possessions but poor in connection? Service and compassion are not only for the materially poor. The wealthy, too, need compassion. Compassion that frees them from isolation, from the pressure to appear perfect, from the fear of never being enough. Everyone, from the greatest to the least, needs the healing touch of being seen, known, and loved. This is why we must tear down the walls of judgment. We must be quick to forgive and slow to condemn. We must replace suspicion with encounter, harshness with gentleness, apathy with empathy. For the measure we use will be measured back to us. There is no person who does not bear the image of God. Even the ones who hurt us, even the ones we do not understand, even the ones we are told to hate. Compassion does not mean agreeing with all things, but it means never giving up on anyone. It means holding the door open even when others would slam it shut. We are not saviors, we are servants. We are not masters, we are messengers. And what we carry is not our own greatness, but the mercy of God. This mercy does not belong to one race, one class, one religion. It flows like a river, free, wild, and overflowing, washing over borders, over fences, over divisions we have built. That is the dream we must live, not a world without difference, but a world where difference is not a threat. A world where we do not all look the same, think the same, or worship the same, but where we see the same humanity in each other, where our hearts are big enough to hold those we do not yet understand. It is not easy. Compassion will cost us. It will cost us time, comfort, ego, sometimes even our safety. But nothing beautiful is born without sacrifice. Nothing holy grows without labor. And what greater labor is there than to love? To be compassionate is to say, I will not close my eyes when others suffer. I will not harden my heart when others cry. I will not look away when I see injustice. Even if I am only one person, even if I cannot do everything, I will do something. And that something matters. So many people today are paralyzed, not by lack of compassion, but by the fear that they cannot do enough. But hear this, the smallest act of love is never wasted. The smallest seed of kindness can grow into a forest of peace. Never underestimate what God can do through a heart that is willing. Let the children teach us. They are not afraid to care. They are not afraid to reach out, to cry, to embrace. They have not yet learned the cynicism that clouds so many adult hearts. We must return to that simplicity, not childishness, but childlikeness, that openness of spirit, that curiosity, that joy in giving. For in the kingdom of God, the last are first, and the smallest are greatest. There are times when we may grow tired. Service is not glamorous. Compassion does not always win applause, but it bears witness. It tells the truth that love is possible, that goodness still lives, that in a world of division, there are still people willing to build unity, not with bricks and mortar, but with grace and truth. Let us remember the words of the prophet. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to serve, to love, and to walk humbly. And so we walk, sometimes slowly, sometimes stumbling, but always forward, guided not by ambition, but by mercy. For compassion does not ask, what can I gain? But what can I give? And that question changes everything. It changes our homes, where we become more patient with one another. It changes our workplaces, where people are no longer treated as tools but as souls. It changes our politics, where power bows before principle, and policies are shaped by the faces of the people they affect. When we begin to see the world through the eyes of the poor, the excluded, the suffering, the forgotten, our priorities change. Suddenly, we cannot be content with comfort when others live without shelter. We cannot rejoice in abundance when others are hungry. We cannot be silent when others are silenced. Compassion interrupts us. It disturbs our schedules. It disturbs our plans. But it leads us to a deeper truth, a life that is not only about achieving, but about accompanying. We must remember that the first question in Scripture asked by a human is one of denial. Am I my brother's keeper? And the rest of history has been God's answer to that question. Yes, you are, we are. Not only the keeper of our brothers, but of our sisters, of the stranger, of the enemy. We are responsible not to control, but to care. True service always begins in the heart. It is not about being noticed. It is not about recognition or reward. It is about fidelity to love, even when no one sees, even when the work is thankless, even when others mock or misunderstand. That is the secret beauty of compassion. It often grows in hidden places. Like seeds in the dark soil, they rise in silence, fed by grace. How different the world would be if every morning we asked, not what must I do today, but whom can I serve today? How different our homes would be if we began each day with a word of blessing. How different our schools if every child were taught that their value is not in their grades, but in their kindness. How different our streets if instead of walking past the suffering, we stopped and stayed. There is a poverty that is deeper than hunger. It is the poverty of being unloved. And there is no medicine more powerful than the tenderness of another human being who says, "You are not alone. You are not invisible. You are not abandoned." That is the heart of the gospel, not a system of rules, but a revolution of relationship. A God who kneels to wash feet, a God who touches lepers, a God who carries a cross. We do not serve to earn heaven. We serve because heaven has already touched us. Because we have been forgiven, we forgive. Because we have been loved, we love. Because we have been lifted, we lift others. The mercy we show is only a reflection of the mercy we have received. And sometimes the greatest service is simply presence, to sit beside someone who mourns, to stand with someone who suffers injustice, to weep with someone who grieves. These are not small acts, these are sacred acts. They remind the world that love still lives, that hope still breathes. Do not believe the lie that the world cannot change. The world has already changed and continues to change every time one person chooses love over hatred, service over selfishness, compassion over cruelty. These choices matter. They echo in eternity. When we look back on our lives, it will not be the things we accumulated that define us, but the lives we touched, the burdens we helped carry, the wounds we helped heal, the tears we helped dry. These are the true treasures that no rust can destroy, that no thief can steal. Let us be a people who walk with others, not past them, who speak with others, not about them, who listen, not to reply, but to understand. Let us be people whose strength lies not in domination, but in devotion. People who do not fear the cost of love, but rejoice in its power. So often we wait for the right moment to act. But the right moment is now. Compassion cannot be delayed. It is the urgency of love that refuses to postpone itself, that refuses to walk away, that says, "Here I am, send me." And when we say, "Here I am," it is not because we are ready, but because we are willing. We offer ourselves as we are tired, imperfect, unsure, and God does the rest. He multiplies our small offerings, just as He multiplied the loaves and fishes. He takes our yes, however trembling, and turns it into a shelter for others. That is the miracle of service. It does not depend on our strength, but on our surrender. We must become witnesses of another way, a way that is not based on competition, but communion. The world tells us to win, to rise above, to take first place. But the Spirit whispers, "Go lower, take the last seat, let others go ahead of you." And in doing so, we discover a joy the world cannot give, a joy that does not fade, a joy that is born in the quiet triumph of love. It is tempting to become discouraged, to look at the divisions, the cruelty, the indifference, and feel powerless. But despair is not the path of the servant. We are not called to win battles. We are called to be faithful, to sow seeds even when the soil is dry, to carry light even when the night is long, to offer peace even when the world chooses war. We must be bold in mercy, brave in kindness, audacious in humility. These are the tools of transformation, not anger, not fear, not superiority, but the disarming power of love. That is the love that disarms violence, that melts hatred, that turns enemies into friends. That is the love that brought God into the womb of a virgin, into the arms of the poor, onto a cross made for criminals. And we, too, must walk that way, not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to bring healing where there is harm, to be light where there is shadow, to be warmth where there is coldness. Even when the world sees no value in compassion, we continue, because we know every act of mercy is a spark that defies the darkness. Let us not forget the faces of the people who depend on us, even if they never say it. The lonely elder who waits each day for a knock on the door. The child who carries silent wounds from a home that lacks peace. The refugee who prays each night for a country to call home. The addict whose pain goes unseen behind the mask of a smile. Each one is Christ in disguise. When we serve them, we serve Him. When we touch their wounds, we touch His. When we look them in the eye and say, "You matter," We echo the very voice of God. This is not sentimentality, it is incarnation. The living God moves in our acts of love, and where he moves, hope begins. Hope is born each time we refuse to give up, each time we forgive, even if the world calls us naive, each time we defend the vulnerable, even if we are called fool, each time we build bridges where others build fences. Hope is not optimism, it is resistance. It is the refusal to let evil have the final word. There will be times when our compassion is misunderstood, when our service is met with suspicion, when our kindness is seen as weakness. But do not be afraid. The cross was misunderstood too, and from it came the greatest victory the world has ever known. Not through vengeance, but through mercy. This is why we serve, not to be noticed, not to be admired, not even to be thanked. We serve because that is who we are. That is who we are meant to be. People shaped not by the love of power, but by the power of love. People who live not for themselves, but for others. And when the days are long, and the burdens are heavy, and our hearts grow tired, let us return to the source. Let us rest in the quiet love of God, who never asks us to carry more than grace will provide. Let us remember that we are not alone in this work. Across the world, millions of unseen hands are lifting, feeding, healing, loving. Together, we form a great communion, a web of mercy woven from every corner of the earth. This communion does not need permission to exist. It does not wait for applause. It grows in secret, like roots beneath the earth. It moves quietly, like light through stained glass. It sings not with the voice of one, but with the harmony of many hearts beating together in the rhythm of compassion. So let us go forth, not with fear, but with fire, not the fire that destroys, but the fire that warms, that lights the path, that purifies the heart. Let us go as healers in a wounded world, as peacemakers in a time of conflict, as servants in an age of pride. Let us carry in our hands not stones to throw, but bread to share. Let us walk not as strangers to one another, but as brothers and sisters, bearing one another's burdens, lifting one another's hopes. For in a world divided by walls, suspicion, and pain, there is no gift more urgent, no task more sacred, no calling more human than the path of compassion and service. This is how we rise, not above one another, but with one another. May we never tire of this work. May we never grow weary of mercy, and may our lives speak, even when our lips are silent, of a love that refuses to give up on anyone ever. Thanks for watching.